Good evening and welcome to today's edition of Hour of Hope. My name is Nana Kwame. I'm sitting in for Pastor Frank. Adofo yɛ mamu nyinaa akwa baba and then dwumadie Hour of Hope no so yɛ frɛ Nana Kwame metena mu ama asɔfo Frank. Na nyame adom ene ɔde akyɛ yɛn topic a yɛdi ho nkɔmmɔ health talk. We want to focus on our health. Yapomudin na apomudin mu no yɛbɛma specifically drugs, in how it interacts with our body, how they even discover in the first place, how it interacts with our body, and effects are in there. And home common and then you yedi. Into baby I will be a triben or phone and now TV, na frɛ wadɔfo ɔnamfofoɔ na yɛn nyinaa yɛntena ase na yɛnsua adeɛ ɛnɛ anwummerɛ yi yɛbɔ Awurade mpaeɛ sɛ ɛyɛ 90 minutes a yɛbɛspend wɔ ha na yɛbɛwie no na yɛayɛ nhyira na yɛnya nimdeɛ kakra a ɛbɛboa yɛn ɛwɔ yɛabrabɔ mu nti Onyankopɔn nhyira wo sɛ woyɛ no saa saa mmerɛ yi Nyame adom yɛwɔ bi a ɔbɛboa yɛn na yɛdi saa nkɔmmɔ yi ɛyɛ ankasa yɛnnua Dr. Emmanuel Ɔsɛe wabɛduru ha sɛ a ɔwɔ ha a yɛn nyinaa ɛyɛ saa adwumadie nti Doc mema wakɔ aba.
That's
me ase enti Brian Doc akwa be yɛbɛbɔ mpaeɛ na afei de yɛahyɛ dwumadie no ase fa kyɛe ɛnam sɛ nnɛ normal yɛdi ho nkɔmmɔ no very technical nti yɛde English ne twi ne bɛfrafra nti yɛsrɛ mo a momfa nkyɛe because normal bi wɔ ha woka no twi ɛnyɛ ye because they are very very technical terms nti yɛsrɛ mo momfa nkyɛe but yɛn nyinaa yɛnya aso na yɛntie na yɛnsua biribi mfiri mu ɛnɛ adwummerɛ yi yɛbɔ Awurade mpaeɛ na yɛahyɛ aseɛ. Awurade yɛda wase sɛ anwummerɛ yi wode yɛn nkwa akyɛ yɛn wahwɛ yɛ so abɔ yɛn ho ban aba bɛsi saa mmerɛ yi yɛpagya dwumadi a yɛbɛyɛ ɛhyɛ wo nsa nkɔmmɔ a yɛbɛdi yɛn mpaebɔ no sɛ Kristo Yesu adom bɛyɛ kɛse na nimdeɛ a yɛbɛnya no yɛbɛtumi de abɔ abrabɔ pa a ɛhyɛ wo din animuonyam wɔsi yɛn nipadua ɛyɛ honhom kronkron no asɔre nti Awurade boa yɛn yɛntumi nkora nipadua yi yie ɛberɛ a yɛnya nimdeɛ firi saa nkɔmmɔdie mu na yɛtumi atena ase akyɛ ayɛ wɔ adwuma ne wapɛdeɛ wɔ asase yi so yɛda wase wo a wadi nkonim ama yɛn wodɔ ba Yesu Kristo din mu enti na yɛbɔ mpaeɛ amen amen to obi bia waka yɛn ho biara and health talk you're talking about drug discovery how it interacts with our bodies, the effects, side effects, and the benefits, and all of that that is associated with drugs. It is a very technical topic. It is very long. It is very in-depth. So it is part one. I don't think we will finish today. And trusting God that next week we'll be able to do part two and bring it to an end. We encourage questions. We encourage comments. We encourage suggestions. Bring them our way so we can have a fruitful discussion. And so without wasting much ado, I want to talk to Doc about our topic today. Before we do, I want him to just introduce himself. What gives him the bona fides to be able to talk to us about drugs? If somebody has an experience in a certain field, has a certain depth of knowledge in that field, they can speak to that field. And so we want him to introduce himself to us so that whoever is listening can be rest assured that he's not blowing hot air, but he's speaking from a very knowledgeable background. And to Doc, but me can be a chair for Bibia Ufria, amount to me, or betting me a discount, and then you
Yo, Nana Midasi. I think, sir, in terms of my education, my undergraduate studies, I'm here, Ohio State University, and my undergrad, in Bachelor of Science in Pharmaceutical Sciences. So basically, the drug discovery process, and then how to make drugs, how drugs interact with the body. That's what I did my undergrad in.
Okay.
And then I proceeded to get my doctorate from Ohio State as well. I have a PharmD, so I spent 4 years in pharmacy school. And then after that, you have to write your boards and pass, and then you become a licensed pharmacist. That is what gives you the authority to be able to practice pharmacy here in Ohio. Okay. So there are some people that go through pharmacy school, but they end up working in the industry, so they don't write the boards, and so they are not pharmacists, but they still have a PharmD degree. Okay. But I have the license to practice pharmacy in Ohio.
Okay. So you can have the degree. If you don't have the license, you cannot dispense medication. You can work in different aspects of the field.
That's right.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Nti enyanu adofo Dr. Mayehu ne background kakra man to me say and otimi ni yedi nkomo. Bachelor of Science in Pharmaceutical Science, Doctor of Pharmacy degree, and then practice maybe 4 or 5 years now. Yes.
Yeah, 4 years going on 5
4
years.
years.
Yeah.
So with that kind of experience, you can speak to us about our topic for today. Yeah, Kaimo said, "Mon more questions and more comments. Emra, Senebeya, Obetimi Abua, na answer some of your questions. And to get started, how do we come about with drugs? Because uko ye crew ma, because so me na bi na kire me, ana me da ho, ana obi so me da ye. Se me nko nwure na me ko tia haban na me tia haban we na me fa nya duro. Ye beti woni na wa ye duro na oton na manfo enom, na manfo di ho adanse se sayare. But maybe a way I've not heard of anybody use that as a claim to sell a medication. It's a chroma away, so be equator draw. What will give them an assurance that draw me to I'm getting the best out of it. How do we come about medication in America? So we'll be if we assure you and we'll be OTA be equator draw, we'll be me now ratio. I'm getting the best.
In terms of saying I also describe was wohwe Ghana obi timika se obi aso no daye anase wakotena dunsu ni bi nchen ne atete no ne ade no kroma no msi no so wohwe history ne kakra the pharmaceutical industry it also has a history. It's coming from somewhere. And there are some times ago where those kind of things we just described in Ghana, no, they were being practiced here as well. But the thing about the Western society is when they realize that something is not working and people are getting hurt, then they take the right steps to make sure they seal that that gate to prevent further people from getting hurt. And if you look at maybe back in the 1800s, even early 1900s, there were people that would go about from door to door selling medications. And back then, one of the medications that was very popular was snake oil. Yeah, and basically they claim snake oil, it cures every disease. Yeah, and then they'll go from door to door and then they'll be selling it. And it has even become like, a colloquial term in American language, say like a snake oil salesman. Yeah, that's where that stuff is coming from. But at some point, as a society, they sat down and realized, these guys, and some of them have no medical background. They just sit in their room and just put some things together and claim, it can heal or cure people, and they go about selling it. Until the government decided, they can't just let people go about doing all those kind of things, so they began to put procedures and measures in place for the safety of the, of the community and of the population. Until from a drug development standpoint, and now everything has been standardized. There is a process that you have to go through in order to, put your medication on the market. And basically, I'll break it down into 5 steps, for the purposes of our studies this evening. Step 1, actual discovery of the medication. And untimin discover a drug without actually, first of all, figuring out what is causing disease. You have to figure out, is it virus, is it a bacteria, is it part of the body that has been dislocated? So you have to find out what is actually causing the disease. So once they can pinpoint, say, this is the thing that is causing the disease, they have to go and study the life cycle of that either virus or bacteria. Ora, if you go back to that slide for me. So because of what we have gone through the past 2 years with the COVID-19 pandemic, and I just want to use that virus as an example. So when the pandemic hit, they discovered, it was the COVID virus that was causing that, disease. So they had to go back into the lab and study the life cycle of the coronavirus. If they can figure out how the virus replicates and is able to infect people, then they can figure out, which stages of that virus's development, can we target to prevent the virus from multiplying. And for example, akwadaa it's very unlikely said the child will be able to cause the same damage as an adult. So if we can stop Akurana at that infant stage now, then the child will not, for example, Adolf Hitler, if somebody could foresee in the future, say this is what he was going to become, and they got rid of him while he was younger, it could have spared the Jews what they went through. So it's the same with the virus. You know, they learn the cycle of the virus, and then we try and see if we can shut the virus down at some stages. So the picture on the screen might look intimidating, but I just want to spend some time and just basically explain what is going on that picture. So we will start on the left side where it says number 1, binding. So it's a virus that oval shape, that black shape, no, that is the cell of the body, like the human cell. So when the virus enters nipaduana, it wants to enter into the cell, because inside the cell na hona nipa no DNA ewo hona machinery ultimately produce proteins, ultimately replicate na hona sa na mani nyina wo. So the target of the virus, you know, eventually is to enter into the human cell. So number 1, no virus no run nipaduana either through the nose or through the mouth. However way it entered the virus will run nipaduana, and now it is trying to enter into the cell. So point number 1, virus, you know, is trying to attach itself to the human cell, because in order for it to be able to enter the cell, it has to first of all attach to the human cell. And to share virus na the outside, you know, blue, and spikes and baby treat some man na etimi man no edin ho attach your cell no na ovum. So the first stage, you know, is what we call docking, D-O-C-K-I-N-G. So it has to dock on the cell. Once it docks on the cell, no, there are 2 things the virus can do. Either say obey injected BB, I'm gonna dissolve outer layer of the cell, which is the black line there. And no dissolve we pay obey to me room. And now say send any peduan ye design no. Say anything foreign try say be room any peduan cell na echichiri at the chrono. It new run inside, try to eat it up. Obey or person say at the chrono be room no. So the virus has 2 means of entering the cell. 1, obe attach it no PBB free no be dissolve outer layer no say be obetime room. And now say o cell no ebe chia the corona awura inside with an attempt say be say no. Right? And it's a virus ni awura cell no ma. Baby oko the nucleus of the cell. Cell no, the center of the cell is called the nucleus. Ehona DNA no ehye. And the virus no is trying to take over nipa na wo wura ni mu ni DNA. Nti onye wura cell no mu pe, the next thing is say obi wura DNA nim. Wura DNA na no wa hijack wo DNA machinery na nka wo be reproduce cell no, virus na hijack sa na no. Na onu mom e dey produce nema ono pe.
Okay.
And this a hwe picture no so stage 3 no, which is RNA release no. Wo wura cell no ma wie, wo hijack nucleus no. And now we start to produce ono nema ohia. Obetime a multiply, which is RNA. Same say COVID in about TB say RNA virus, RNA. Yeah, into uremu sa na o produce RNA na. RNA no is just a messenger, a carry information to make protein. Into once we really see RNA no will be translated into a protein. Which is step number 4 on the screen. It says translation. So basically, a copy information or RNA to make the protein that it needs. And then your proteins now here we are. Then now all the envelope cover the proteins to make a new virus. Where stage 7 is called packaging and viral assembly. Into a packaging new virus in we are. Then the virus will exit the cell. Virus back up in the room, but where stage 8 now, 4. So basically, it takes over the host cell to multiply itself, and then the cell will release it. The moment the virus is released, it means he's infectious at that point.
Around the bloodstream.
Around the bloodstream. So those viruses now, they are ready to be. It's a nipani sneezy, and I say any fluid of the person who come into contact, those viruses can be exposed out of the body, and then somebody can get infected. Yeah. Yes, the virus in the life cycle near we say now. Yehu say about 7 areas say yetimi intercept here virus no ontimi multiply and spread it. Nti say ye pedra sa 7 areas na ye say ye kope edura ebetimi de stop it. Sa virus in life cycle no.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's it. It's you information doctor any ache na order to India your chrome the ecoso and I say even not just your chrome but other civilizations any other countries so how they develop drugs are we have to ask ourselves so normal way ecoso na because there will be a draw where a sa na yare no we don't have any research to back at the chrono then once they be a side draw na the man but India nipa we na ye adwuma man but any adwuma mo bia but we don't have the research to back it up I bet me so okay I deal when you do in the course of our nipa do any mutia sa yare but until draw we ebetimi stop no until now no we've got the first stage right amaye hu how virus and I said bibi ewura system ni mo e reproduce ema nya yare until ene na boama doctors and as scientists who say okay you person develop a draw dia or say you have to look at these areas ebetimi stop it sad no okay until ebetimi ato aso
yeah until say na who send a virus no is operating no most of the pharmaceutical industries they have reserve of molecules which is endura potentially betime aye drug. And so what they would do is they will look at the life cycle of the virus and then they have computer simulations. So they have billions of molecules. They would find out, they will sequence the proteins in our virus. To virus, they will cut parts of the virus and try to find X-ray. So they blow up virus structure. So they know exactly which part of the virus now the molecules they are attacking.
Okay.
And once they get a molecule, they feel say it's a potential molecule. Then they will start what we call the preclinical trials. We showed image number 2 number. So we just talked about the stage 1, which is the pre-discovery where they are studying about the life cycle of the virus. Stage 2 and 3, so they'll do preclinical trials, and usually they will start in animals, into your rats, and I say akura, and I say guinea pigs. They will start from there. They would inject the mouse with whatever virus they are trying to cure, and then they would introduce molecule cure. And then they will watch the mouse for some time and see say the outcome now or more panel. If the mouse is showing those symptoms, say one the virus in the one mouse on the yare and they say yamane draw mouse near her no he say the whole ton and I say near no a west. Okay, so the whole ton on so are there any irregular behaviors mouse no show until they're also watching for any kind of side effects.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, they're doing a work on the water, but you who said during that time, it be when not diarrhea, and I see during that time, why you depressed, and I say during that time, why see until more monitor and once they get that information, then the next stage, is to start clinical trials in humans, and also in 3 stages. There is phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 clinical trials. The phase 1, they usually start with nipa kakrebi. Phase 1 clinical trials, almost start with nipa kakrebi. That yare na omo pese omo kio ne bi. Ye fan say nke ye covid dia omo fa nipa omo nya covid ne bi.
Asama me be so be say covid ne ba yet announcement a man for signing up to be in the clinical trial for some of the vaccines that came out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That is the aspect I want to say. You free. I'm testing more so we are no more how effective it is. I don't be doing it so I'm person or more testing. And the first phase is so me find the pack a crabby or my testing or my share. Okay.
Yeah. And this omo find the pack a crabby for phase 1. No. Na say omo results no omunya no 1. Omu too many side effects. And Nipano Omufi said they are showing positive signs of recovery. Then they'll move on to the next phase. Next phase, Omu the Nipa more than Omom phase 1. Ebeka. And then Nomako phase 3. Phase 3 usually it entails a lot of people. Right. Until once Omu phase 3, they gather all the information on here, which is dosage.
Okay.
How much of a drone near the many pana or any panel ebe stati shows signs of recovery.
In Kuno.
In Kuno.
Okay.
Until that they will establish the effective, it's called the effective dose.
Okay.
Right. And then they will also figure out the therapeutic range. So therapeutic range in here, a drone, what is the minimum dose? Ebeye juma. And then what is the maximum dose? Without nipa showing like harmful, effects and that's a consequence. Until once they gather all those information, and everything is promising, then they will submit the research with the outcomes and everything to the FDA.
Food and Drug Administration.
Food and Drug Administration, for them to review or more work, to show, say, if it's actually what they are claiming, say, a drone, and if it's actually true, and all the data no are presenting, if say BBI legit.
Okay. Maybe a question, Kakrao. During COVID, we had a lot of announcements. A man for voluntarily signed up to be guinea pigs for vaccine. No? And if I say yes, sorry, would you encourage anybody to sign up for a clinical trial?
The mechanism says so. Person will signing up for clinical trial. One, you need to be very knowledgeable of what you are signing up for. And a lot of times, for pandemic, for example, almost signing up, maybe they are afraid of dying, or they feel like the environment is very likely for them to, get the disease. And there are some people they just want to offer themselves. They just want to help. Okay. There are people like that. They just want to help. Okay. Yeah, and even there are some patients or mobile pharmacy or me catcher me say any drug company pay nipa mama clinical trials. Yeah, we should let them know. And some of these people so they pay them to be part of the and to be one of because of school being they will offer themselves up. But the mechanism so person ye bibisa or so their way and know the consequences. And TS now fee say something I'll be to my there, then we can go ahead and do it. Yeah.
Thank you. My next question is here. You share Yarwa Bua affected India and more. It also affected before more. But I'm saying a lot of the research on the bachelor said when you are doing clinical trials, before bebre. So many before Africa for bebre. They are not able to determine how it affects people of African descent in Saranoma. I need to answer our questions. This will be better clinical trials. Should we encourage them? How do we go about educating our people to be open-minded about Saranoma? Knowing that down the lane a bit boy, because a drobi or her, what they may be on the other side, maybe a technology, a bro would develop an iPhone cameras, a profile one would travel picture. It's a mini picture. It doesn't look as good as Bruni because the camera has been trained on only a white person. But when they began to expose it to other black people and people of other races, they saw they have to change certain things. What do we do to encourage people in our community to be receptive to scientific and clinical trials so that down the lane, it can open up a lot of medication and way for benefit?
Yeah, I think a very good question will be, sir. The mechanism, there is a history to this as to why most black people, among persons signing up for clinical trials, and even to the extent of our African community. Back in the early 1900s and even in the mid 50s and 60s, when they were trying to do these clinical trials, especially in the slave era, if they weren't getting people to me a slave master and me a scientist, and I'm in the lab and I figured out say substance me face a bit my draw. My test mounts who say is showing promise. But mean to me, niska me timna kakul kutu amount for my clinical trials, But me were slaves, maybe 500.
Okay.
Black slaves. And I just without them even knowing, ebi ebe catch almost say be ye mom duane and I mom nsu and say be na ye introduce virus on I day. Until before they know it, they are being used for clinical research purposes without their knowledge. Okay. And as early as 1950s or 1960s, there is a situation where the U.S. government, I'm not talking about any pharmaceutical, the U.S. government, they were doing some kind of research where they introduced syphilis into some black men and decided not to treat them to see, you know, how bad the disease can get. And they were trying to seal it up, and eventually came out. And because of that, black people are very, very skeptical when it comes to say, clinical trials and even a drug after FDA and some are approve a new ground, they don't want to try it because they are fearful. Say, the government is trying to get rid of them or trying to use them as guinea pigs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And see, there's a lack of trust between the scientific community and the black community.
Yes.
You know? I drew COVID no. Now a lot of the pharmaceutical companies, the government were relying on the black church. To educate the community. Say vaccine okay or munteki. They spent a lot of money and effort on the black church reaching out. Let's just say within the community, you know, has a special place, and it's because of that trusting relationship people have with the church. You know, they were using that as an avenue to bring them vaccine to your community. And see, the church has a trusted. The church is trustworthy. And even the government sees the church as an organization that is trusted in the community. And so you be in the community, a man for are skeptical of the government, a man for the government in India, or you see a sereno. And COVID-19 vaccines nearby, and now call black communities and all person or mobile. A shuffle any more call a man for a few new communities, new community centers, new barber shops to talk to a man for to encourage them to take the vaccine. Say, the papa. And the church has a unique role it plays. And you've been an enemy, to try and educate all of us so that we can have a sense of how drugs, how they come on the market and how they affect us. And that's it. Clinical trials are done. It has been submitted to the FDA. Hopefully, we've got some black people in there, some Africans in there to help give us a diverse way. What is the next stage after that clinical trial?
Yeah, so a core FDA in my name and ABC. One, either somebody rejected study, no. I catch almost say there are errors in the study, they should go back and fix it. And I say, I'm accept it, Neman Omode about normal approving.
Okay.
So FDA approve it, now the pharmaceutical company can go ahead and start mass production.
Okay.
And then eventually the medications will end up in the pharmacy and people can have access to it. Yeah.
Okay. And come from looking at the virus or the bacteria, studying its life cycle, figuring out a molecule, a bit to me a solve preclinical trials, clinical trials phase 1, phase 2, and now approval. How long does it take to be able to get through all these stages for a drug to come out, to give people an assurance, and now the NBA 1 day and I say overnight and I say 1 week be and I don't know, you see a drug in our market. How long does it usually take?
Yeah, so on average, for every drug that will come on the market, it takes on average about 10 to 15 years.
Wow.
About 10 to 15 years from when they start studying the life of the virus and going through all the stages before the FDA approves it. And on average, it's about 10 to 15 years before it comes on the market. So the process is very intense.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
It's very intense.
So 10 to 15 years, no, will be Nina national diabetes and some they drop a Ghana within the test in 15 years. The Abusian 4 years and says, oh, pharmacy shop, CVS, Walgreens, Kroger, wherever. No more withdraw Dr. Chiroma, Nekitawa, on average about 10 to 15 years. And as I drew, it has been tested and tested and tested. And so when you approve, I'll be drawing some. And the child said, and yeah, I did that form, and yeah, better, sir. And then it will be brave, so don't get approval. What is usually the approval rate?
So I'll say, like, if 4 drugs are submitted for approval, maybe just 1 might be approved out of the 4.
Wow. So about 25% approval rate. And you can imagine every year be a nura acquire, you're rejected. Now bakupe APA free ma. Now I take it 10 to 15 years. And sana about the drew market no. na ye nyina etimi akwa akotobi nti enu nti na ma enuro boy din America na na
eno ka ho bi nti yemfa ne se coronavirus yi bai na Pfizer epese omo eye dro e di twiti coronavirus omo try baako mienu miensa omo kwa FDA ne se yempe na finally omo timi enya dro baako a ya approve on average to make one drug and put it on the market, it costs anywhere between $318 million to about $2.8 billion with a B.
Wow.
So to get one drug on the market, that's about how much it costs the pharmaceutical companies, about $318 million to about $2.8 billion.
Wow.
And sometimes they might have tried 3 medications, spending this amount of money, and then it doesn't get approved. And it's eventually, they're not only trying to make profit from that one medication, but also the 3 medications that failed that they spend $500 million on, they need to make sure they recoup all those money. And that's why they will not stay profitable, they'll have to shut down. Yeah, and then once FDA approve a drone, company has exclusive rights to sell the medication for 20 years. It means company no kwa na betima yesa do no be fufuro bia entimi nye bi.
Okay.
They give them that time say na be ometima ton do no manya omo profit and also omusika omo de ye drug development no ometima tisa eka no. Say na be ometima de bia ometima koso no maye ndru fufuro. Nti for 20 years that company no kwa na betima ton say do no omo de aba market no. Nti basically they charge whatever amount they want.
Okay.
Nti na usually ndru aba market fufuro no ne boy den no because obi fufuro bi antimi be just one company pen a year and they need to stay profitable even though some of them are greedy and they charge outrageous prices, but maybe it's not just for that one medication, but they tried 5 medications that failed and they need to make sure they get that money back.
In a way, can we say, sir, I'm trying to find the right word for it, sir, the rest of the world, especially the underdeveloped world, I don't know if you say should be grateful for America for their purchasing power to buy expensive drugs, because that is what allows it to go down the line to them. Because India, Ukraine, and as Africa, and as even South America, they are not spending that much money on research for drugs. They are not spending that much money developing new drugs, testing it, going through the regulatory process. But America for, and I say another country, spends $2 billion developing a drug. It might fail, it might not get approved. But if it eventually gets approved after 20 years, it will be a criminal boy for 4. And in a way, we should be, I don't know if the word is right, grateful for the risk these companies take.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is there, and we have to be grateful because after 20 years, basically, every other pharmaceutical company is now giving access to make that medication if they want to. They will just have to submit application to the FDA and let them know, say, they also want to make the medication, and the FDA will grant them access to make the medication. And usually, 20 years na expire, now other companies start to it brings competition, and every time there's competition, it drives the prices down. Yeah, that's why the pharmaceutical companies within that 20 years, they need to make sure they make every money that they can, because once competition comes in, pay a dronable but then also more patients, because now patients can afford it, because a dronable a brand name now need insurance. A be a drawback, bosume a drawback. $2,000, $1,000. The product also in a bit more afforded that on a monthly basis, so we need good insurance. Until once the 20 years expire, and other companies in the Boma, and my born reasonable to the extent say the average person, a bit me afford it.
Okay, until Ghana for ya reparapan or see that or more would be kind of seeker a developer paracetamol. Yeah, a man about out be effective virtually no boy be for. Ghana, you're really set to finish.
Yeah.
All right. 20 years now, so a drone will be able to be now. Performance generic and brand name. Should I be worried? Can I buy the generic? Is it as effective as the brand name?
Yeah. So basically, a drone, Bibi wo ma eno na eboa a ye frɛ no active ingredient. Se aduro no nya be generic say ya. All companies no maba na mo be aduro no nyina no. In order for aduro no to be approved, it needs to have the same active ingredient as brand name,
Okay.
What might be different is what we call the inactive ingredients.
Okay.
Because companies almost share a recipe. Yeah. But the active ingredient there, publishing in scientific journal is out there. Everybody knows, say, for diabetes, metformin, and a treaty. Metformin, no structure ni. Ubia or science or chemist background be a bit me synthesize it, some molecule.
Okay.
But what the company will not share with you, what other ingredients, ABA or mode, show. But no crampono, a drone be on everything is listed. But every company has their wholesaler and answer or more near more modi or mundro. Until sometimes the inactive ingredients will be different. So here picture now we're there tosona. We label a drobi any drug label no. So here sronoma obon say active ingredient is listed as ethyl alcohol 62%. Into regardless of company kra sa a draw the active ingredient will be the same. Into over the counter. Na say obeso to dra. O dani edro nachi. Usually over the counter more the brand name or na generic one is in chain. Ofa brand name na dani echire. Na we label no. Na we generic one so na dani echire na we label na. The active ingredient no say the same for the brand name and the generic. But so picture na say hono ma omo inactive ingredients. There is water and some other things hono. And obon say bia obedane brand name na chi no any generic na inactive ingredients no enyepe. But active ingredient na esaya de na de it has to be the same. Into hono de make say or say we are careful now we read the inactive ingredients
Okay.
Because A B and B were inactive ingredients in my way allergic to.
Okay.
And to also pay attention because A B now no brand name drug.
Okay.
And I want nom na for be 20 years. And a generic abase say. Generic ni cheap and two so free brand name no so na generic and so. But brand name na no. The inactive ingredients a bit more base a different than generic na aba no. They also check a generic drug and now who say inactive ingredients be anima we are allergic to. As long as you're not allergic to anything there, a dronomy no the same.
Okay.
But over so brand name so it means it's kind of what to go at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for food to a doctor the man say Oko Kroger now oko to ibuprofen na your ibuprofen made by Johnson and Johnson. Now your Kroger for ibuprofen at this stage there. So Kroger there near $2 cheaper to Kroger there because you are getting the same effect. And so enim and for your own sikasem Tuesdays your papa try send about a bit in your D you bit me in your sika and nam so if you want to be wealthy biblically these are some of the ways that we can do it. When you go into the store and you are buying a medication that is over the counter, you don't necessarily need to buy the brand name. We can buy the generic and it will be as effective as a brand name. And always, the generic is cheaper than the brand name. And so those are means by which you can save money as well. Okay. And Doc, your Chrome, I know sir you didn't train in Ghana, but I just want to ask questions for the benefit of our viewers. I barely see active ingredients, inactive ingredients on medications your Chrome or Motown. And people are not aware. For example, you just made us aware, say, maybe the active ingredient is the same, but inactive ingredient is different. And you might be allergic to something in the inactive ingredient. And they don't put it out there. What do you do? Because we call your African stores they sell medication over there, and people buy it. So what can we do to educate ourselves to be conscious of these things? So they affect your health, because sometimes the effect might not be right away, but over time.
Yeah, and no, the American say, so Ghana, it is the responsibility of the Food and Drug Administration there to enforce these laws. To some extent they do, but unfortunately, when it comes to over-the-counter medications now, it's almost like it's free for all. Into Wuni Panana also educate you on say, but that side now. Now we make sure want to toy drone through, you know, be a basa basa. But you know more how say now, omokoto no free African market no dear. And no dear make us say me advice will be as yeah, one Chrome Hanum saying drone. We've gone through the process of how the drugs get approved. A very rigorous process, and there are a lot of checks and balances in there. Okoto a drone free Ghana. One, unim baby a drone free ba. Say drone omoko kre free China, so omoko kre free Nigeria, so omoko kre free India. Utimiko China oko fo a drone. Obetima catch almost a drone way. Monfa we infra munye ni say. Krumana untimi nyesa. Emra na ma kwa ma onyesa. Enti nipa ne bia ne prophet a open no. A drone no ebi kura na ede enye papa. Enti me the main advice will be a wo krumana say koto edra edi free Ghana, you know, unless you don't have any other means. Okay. But you are putting your life, you know, in the hands of an amateur. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Okay, Doc. What are the purposes of the inactive ingredients now? The frano? Because you see, who said the active ingredients for brand names and generic there is the same, but inactive ingredients in a different. Why should they be different? What is the purpose? Will they be different from this, and why do they add the inactive ingredients? Say me yare na me here, mitie be yare pese mitie yare ne kwa. Give me what will make the mitie yare ne be kwa. I don't think also the normal efra.
Okay, so active ingredient, no, I will say you figure out a way to get it inside your body. And that's where a lot of times we have difficulties and challenges. Okay. Because the way I design it was not initially designed, we were not designed to be sick. Okay. Let me put it that way. Okay. When God created man, he did not create man to be sick. So our body was supposed to be self-sustaining and, you know, self-healing. Okay. And because of this reason, anything you try to get into the body, you face challenge. Okay. You face challenge. And you know, science for us maneuver some of these challenges in the body in order to be able to get the medication to baby or cycle. Okay. For example, over the counter drew Prilosec, omeprazole, or heartburn and acid reflux, to, you know, to kind of help them. Basically, stomach can produce too much acid. Okay. So Prilosec drew no. I was say it may making its way through your stomach, echo intestine, Emma ne absorb into a bloodstream. Okay. And then it will make its way back into your stomach. Again. Yeah. But not inside like stomach, and it will have to make its way back into your stomach, but on the back end. Okay. Yeah, to tone down acid production. Okay. But stomach acid ebe breaky active ingredient, you know. Emma intimate through intestine. See the mouse are. Into what they do is some of these inactive ingredients, you know, is to protect the medication. Send a baby stomach acid, you know, and say medication and sana a true baby was a year juma. So that would be one of the reasons why I'm the inactive ingredient in the county. I don't know Becca said for stabilization of the active ingredient. Okay. They have to stabilize the active ingredient so it can go through your stomach and get to the point I was a year juma.
Okay. And to the other and said, so you num a drew a fire numa and now num through trachea or whatever. Esophagus. Yeah. All the way down to your stomach first. Yes. And send our core.
Small intestines
to the liver. And depending on what a drone will say, you know, it might come back into the stomach again or move on. Yes. Okay. Yes. And to help stabilize a drone into normally inactive ingredients, no. And yes, it could do yempe. It will not get the desired effect, you know.
Right. That's one reason. Yeah. Another reason, so yeah, and do not be YBA and you know pa. They are trying to figure out a way to because ubu a drone you now we are there on them. Okay. Until inactive ingredients in bejumo we and say every man taste na de kakra. Okay. So na be any panu beti my day. anomeduro. So that would be one reason why I'm the inactive ingredients in this will be very
frafra.
Usually, yeah, it was a cherry, bubble gum, yeah, just to make it easy for the kids to be able to take it. Yeah.
All right, okay. All right. And brings me to my question. So, because woman draw no me out, so me what to me. But how long does it? I mean, looking at the process that we are talking about, before esophagus into your stomach, into your small intestines before it starts working. How long does it usually take? Because we will be a draw so me what to me. I'm thinking, say, esophagus crash. I started confessing, he's feeling okay.
Yeah. So one of the things during clinical trials, is to figure out what is the best way to give the medication.
Okay.
Because you will be on up until now, me from more be and fan.
Okay.
Into be a more patch, not depending on the in skin. Because a drone is so unstable, say, okay, so the fan numa in drew baby, and I do not body no either. I say no.
Okay.
Until the only way I said drone between the money panny, say, all the better skin, not a dissolve through skin, and then eventually make its way into your system. And the beans who are honoma. Oral dissolving into the two onuma nanane into enko oyemkra o tekrema say there are so many blood vessels ewo he said doni nyan say neck a top blood vessels in mupe is going straight into bloodstream. So that's one way a bit ma bypass the whole alimentary canal. And then there is nasal too. I don't know on my nasal to when you say blood vessels baby or wanting whether near a crabby penna or when not mojeba because there are a lot of blood vessels in your nose. Until we take advantage of all these other areas to introduce medication into the body. I had said between the amount oral.
Okay, all right. And yeah, but for you see there and you see there pa you be encourage me say what questions are and comments are me pa cho yen famra na yenyina yensia. Doc, betimi ani edi nkomo kakra about supplements. I'm for be me take one a day, me take vitamin C. Will be the supplement to abra me say ya pa ade we natural wellness. Ya tini nyina bi. Betimi my education kakra about no so.
Yeah, so the microphone says so that I think that this is something that I really want people to understand so that they know what they are taking when they buy these supplements. We went through the drug approval process. Yeah. That is medication now. This is called doctor who want prescription amount. Now they are called pharmacy no okay. And on the process NAD can review earlier on. When it comes to these supplement, diet, herbal supplements now, it doesn't go through that process now you described earlier on.
Wow.
Yeah.
It is a oko Kroger. Now I talk vitamin D, and I talk one a day, and these natural herbal supplements will be very recommended. It wasn't approved by the FDA.
Yeah,
so it didn't take those 10 years,
right.
12 years, 15 years approval process. Maybe.
No.
So how does it get to the market, and how can we trust it?
Yeah, before it was a free market, free for all. So literally, me na me garage, na ma pet capsules, na me de sugar gum, na me treat so the gubo to me, na me ma print it label their phone, and I can just sell it. On one condition, say I don't make any claim on the bottle say it cures any disease.
Okay.
The moment I make that claim, the FDA will come after me.
Okay.
But as long as I'm a BBA and gubo to no say supplement to onoma, ebe cure with blood pressure, ebe cure with diabetes, I can just put it out there and sell it.
Say a supplement.
Say a supplement. Yes, a buoni pediano. I'm not making any health claim. As far as the laws are concerned, I'm at that point, I'm in breaking law here. But the sad aspect is say and go through FDA process into be a bit me. IBB or PBI, not their two market and so not autumn. So at some point, it became an issue. So what they did was they passed a law, and that law is called Dietary Supplements Health and Education Act. Okay. They passed that law, I think, in 1994. Right. And basically what that law established, and they say, so what a draw side to market in this one, it has to be safe, but you don't have to prove say a drone a juma. It just has to be safe, and it has to be sanitary. So that's all that law established.
Okay.
And the FDA is now going around policing and now checking people to make sure say baby drone is sanitary. The only time the FDA will come in if so be a drone and now drone and then they report it. That's when the FDA will come in.
Okay.
But Otwa, you are at the mercy of whoever made the medication.
Wow. For anti-supplements, no, you can't supplements, you are vitamins, minerals, tonton or star, amount for no. The doctor might says, and the FDA, it doesn't go through FDA approval. Those 10, 15 years, other medications go through FDA approval, and it doesn't go through it. It is all you are at the mercy of the person who manufactured it. Doc, if you are going to be at the mercy of the person who manufactured it, how can we know that what we are buying is coming from a sanitized environment and it went through a good manufacturing environment? Are there some brands who have a track record? And I say, is there something we can look out for? So, I talk vitamin, I talk mineral B. Are there some brands and I say, BBM to me, I share to let me know, so okay, it hasn't gone through FDA approval, but sadly, with me who are say, safe, meet me, I know.
Yeah, sure. Remember, the image number 5, not to Venus or Mianka. Okay, very good. Okay. Some of the big companies on more dietary supplements, because they know the law says they have to work in a sanitary environment and the medication has to be safe, they are not waiting for an incident to happen and the FDA to come after them. They have taken proactive steps.
Okay.
There is an independent organization. Nejuma eya ane say, why you do na so person mo be test emawa, omba be test emawa. I make sure say quantity na o see a woman ampa sa ane wom. Okay. And na kwan ofa so the year do no so no ofa hygienic way and out the year. Okay. Into one of those companies a USP. No. Omo logo and na that screen is no. Okay. In this auto supplement and I say able we be na so who say sign we at the bottom no. It means say uhwe label na say ka say 900 milligrams ampa 900 milligrams in the womb. A kwan omo fa so omo ye do no omo fa kwan papa so and omo de ye enti say duro say and auto na wono ma you are rest assured say a duro no one is safe. Okay. And the milligram na e watro bottle no sa and ampa unya. A drubu wa betono ya ho 800 milligrams, but in fact, if you are 1,002 in a womb and 1,006 in a womb, because there is no policing of that supplement we say Okay. Yeah, and he said there is another one I was saying. It's called GMP. It stands for Good Manufacturing Practice. And so who says I sign so bottle it means say. A quite far so the is safe and is sanitary. Okay. Yeah, but this USP is the biggest company that does that verification process, and they've been doing it for the longest time. Okay. One brand of vitamins and supplements are we used to this company Nature's Made. Nature's Made, okay. Yeah, and they were one of the first companies to use this company to supplements, and usually is very good and it's very safe. Okay. Yeah, but it's a person supplement over the counter. I would strongly advise check a bottle make sure some of these signs are on there to let you know what you are buying is safe. Okay. The most severe ones they order from online. Because maybe a vendor is from China or is from India or is from some place and they're just shipping it to you. You have no oversight of how or drone. But then you trust them enough, say, now they're good with them. Okay.
I was for and marine yeah, commercial my company be a doctor can Nature's Made, but you two for say, sa normal minua already at 2 page in a USP. Any GMP certified no. So oko top supplement vitamins ni minerals laxatives obi wo pese emia otimi eja ne nan but Niyamas etimi and normal all those things no. Look out for these signs, these symbols, these seals, USP and the GMP on the bottle or on the box. And you bet me I'm our assurance say at least the omaka say word drone and you know and number 2, omo manufacture omo ye no omo ye baby a clean environment because chroma there. And I'm so I'm be a persecurity. Obi bet me the garage not to hold no sanitized environment. And doctor can no or the city a Google capsule mu no the share box mu no ton. Send the see where you chrome no. The chrome as so amount for yen sa it for your own good. I dare call with you, call nipa mu there. Just make sure sir at least it is GMP certified or USP. No be more assurance because supplements now and I said dietary way now no. It is at least it has been tested and you can trust it.
Yeah, and I did back also make kind say always. Especially if you walk into the pharmacy, the pharmacists are always there ready to help you find products.
Okay.
And if you have questions, you can always grab the bottle or whatever and take it to the pharmacy and ask them what their opinion is.
Okay.
Yeah, because even near my stores, is typical example. Of late, there are so many so-called drugs to help with memory and brain function because they've realized that America has an aging population, right? With baby boomers, normal retirement, and Alzheimer's and dementia has become prevalent in our society now. And they are targeting that population with memory supplements and all these kind of things. One, for a drug to be able to help with memory, there is something in your brain called the blood-brain barrier. It's a protection that God has put in place. Because your brain is what determines your BBR, so it has to be protected. That's why it is encaged in your skull as a protection. And so that blood-brain barrier is there to prevent chemicals and stuff from going into your brain. So for a drug to help with memory, one, it needs to be able to cross that blood-brain barrier. And there are so many of these memory supplements they are selling on the market. And the so-called active ingredient that is supposed to help you with the memory cannot even cross the blood-brain barrier. So how then are you telling me, say, this thing can help? But the funny thing is, there is something called placebo effect.
Okay.
Right? Placebo effect simply means, say, what the bad spiritual side now is basically faith. Me wo GDA say, just based on that GDA, your brain can program itself to start healing itself. And there are some of these supplements people are taking. The truth of the matter is, sugar in the womb, sugar pill, but because of commercials, any nadam fubi or numbi testimony or dear man no one GDA will muse or no more obey okay. A say GDA and a man hoton and maybe be a walk up soon.
Okay.
So, enti you only penny boa umbedi dance say one number do say who's in the brain okay. But the truth of the matter is active ingredients in the woman scientifically there is no way you can prove to me say a drone juma.
Okay.
Hey, enti sa any man so wo honoma. I will say, very careful.
I was here for send a doc a car, for our own good. Just ask questions. The pharmacists are there to help. Just ask questions. Supplement here made toy. Is it USP? Is it GMP? As someone more can, does it do what it says it will do? But because supplements are over the counter, it doesn't go through these processes now. Are there any side effects? Should we be worried about side effects if I'm taking supplement?
Yeah, absolutely. What the mechanism say? The fact say, I think a lot of people have this misconception. Say, because it be a natural, it means say it's safe. There are no side effects because say it's natural. And these pharmaceutical companies, they know this, and they use that to advertise. Into your fleet, it's like a fad, it's like a trend. Everything. Natural, organic. Yeah. We are that terms now if we say we are safe, but that's not true. And to both about no they are born organic. Now they are born natural. But that doesn't mean say we are safe. The truth of the matter is everything is a poison. Everything. You treat everything as a poison. how much you take determines whether you live or die.
Okay.
Yeah. Minimum beer, omoye one nsuo too much water wawu.
No, yeah.
What you say? Obitimi didi broso na wawu. But in retrospect, the thing is not supposed to kill you, it's supposed to help you. But how much now we take, is what determines. And you have to keep that mindset, say everything is a poison. Okay. But how much you take determines whether you live or die. And to some of these supplements, one, if you are not getting it from a good source, and it could be, say, baby woman, bit me, okay. Even with the ones that have been made correctly and has been certified, there are two types of vitamins. Maybe say you can't.
Okay, let's see idea.
There is what we call water-soluble vitamins. Okay. Until you have vitamins now, already there are two screens now. There is vitamin B1, B2, B3, B5, B6, B7, B9, and yeah. These vitamins are considered to be water-soluble. Okay. What that means is that one vitamin where it may dissolve in suya e wo nipediem. Okay. And this body need you su the epewia they are canning in you just pee it out. Okay. And it very hard to say any of these vitamins and cause harm. The vitamins by itself. It could be say be inactive ingredients be uma and ubetima harm, but the vitamin itself the ones that are water soluble no matter how much you take, so body need you su the epewia. The rest, and because a dissolve once you won't put your money ube pee out. Okay. The other alternative, what we call the fat soluble vitamins. Fat soluble vitamins. That is vitamin A, vitamin K, vitamin E, and a vitamin D. These vitamins, and this water soluble ones, and they dissolve only per year, we are no pee. Way mono is stored in the fat in your body. And this overtake here. You are not getting rid of it. It keeps piling up in your body. Okay. And after a while, if you're not under the supervision of a doctor or running labs, someone who say, well, labs need to say high and a low. Now say, oh, don't want to vitamin D. So, for example, and I won't know it's building up in your system. Okay. And you are not under any doctor's supervision. Until on Corona lab man who say, okay, he say, baby, what do you now say ujai for some time and son was eventually why didn't say we take key supplement to help you, but then you end up hurting yourself? So, okay.
We should pay attention, especially these fat soluble vitamins, A, K, E, D. Vitamin D, especially, are there amount for be taking home supplements. If you are taking these supplements and you are not seeing your doctor on a regular basis for labs, you might be piling it up in your body. It is stored in the fat in your body. Until beyond certain levels, they can become harmful. Until you're very careful. Vitamin D, especially, I'm for vitamin D, and vitamin K, you can say a boy with eyesight.
Vitamin K, it helps regulate blood clotting. Blood clotting, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that one too is a very dangerous one. Yeah, because you have a hard time for your blood to clot.
Yes. Okay. All right. Stop it. Because vitamin K was system does. Yeah. Okay. You take supplements now. If it has not been prescribed by a doctor, one can on your own will be too full. And I will take supplements because you want to get a balanced diet and all of that. You're very careful. Vitamin K, and then the issue say it prevents blood clotting. Nti ema omoja ntimi nklote nti upra bo se moja ne basa ntimi stop it that wan hwe ya beti woni na wawu enti na obi wa bibi twa na etimi kunu no the blood ne ntimi nklote nti oblidi sa na we lose blood na wawu and I say wa collapse nti yenyina yesua de na doc me wa Massachusetts na me ni ma branch bi a oye dro garlic ni ginger no the no normal fra na or the good milk gallon num na manfo anom no blood pressure come from no blood dey me tie na for the manfo be bre etobi so me high blood pressure doctor drew the man in board den abranti we am drew garlic ni ginger ni normal baby na o man no na o doctor yi me free blood pressure ne so enti no sa abranti we drew no ye you knew say we have used to garlic and ginger. We can attest to the health benefits. You drink say yeah. Can you tell us some of the effects? Sir, I know a normal way bet me in your system. No.
Yeah. So all the garlic and the ginger yeah aduane no fine. But so we could take supplement. Now we could be a ginger supplement and now we could garlic supplement. In our terms, there is something we call the 5 Gs. Okay. The 5 Gs, which stands for garlic, ginger. There is an herbal plant called ginkgo, and then there is ginseng, and then glucosamine. Sa niyama 5 year ma bobo so yi. So what taking the bebra, it has the potential to increase bleeding risk. Yeah, until you be honoma say you in surgery. Omutima akọ consult a review unra onumu nyina to make sure say bibia ni honoma onoma ekobasi kutwa osisi a ebema na hard for you to stop bleeding.
Okay.
So but sa nyama 5 na bobo so no if you onum no bebra it mean ma o struggle to stop bleeding.
Okay.
Enti emfa na say wo koye surgery na onum garlic supplement and onum ginseng supplement. And no, it may thin or blood, no. And it makes it harder for you to clot blood to stop bleeding. It is any power. It said, look, would correct theater, not doctors in any way, no muchana. Once or my surgery, but nippon into me enjoy bleeding, which can nippon make me bleed to death.
To death. And your chrome, Mekai, China for the new baby by ginseng, now man for no pa. And to bet I say me am for brain unknown just had ginseng tea in ginseng where I call hospital surgery and have died because nobody knew so on no surgery.
Yeah, it's very possible. Yeah, very, very possible. Yeah. Ghana craddy is a very dangerous, especially with some more bitters na abano.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ubia be any way ya na why bitters.
Bitters. Yeah.
Bitters and so baby no more day plant roots and I say leaves and I say plant nechi and no more no more the alcohol go alcohol a good solvent, it may extract it and name free.
Yeah.
And say nipa no any medical background no akobie na be na chere no anyway say na wotwitwa roots any tree ne ma no mo de alcohol gu ho na omaye no mo de ma no one. Okay. One of the big difference between drugs that go through FDA process, during that stage, they're able to figure out the minimum dose, minimum dose effect, and the maximum dose to cause side effects. Me bitters and agents, and one is already shady and nobody giddy bitters no more tongue. So, and in this okotona and yet active ingredient ba akopene e wa de enum because alcohol no de hye ho a de wodua no be atwini nyina apie atwini nyina
all the chemicals
yeah,
so the toxic chemicals,
the good ones, the toxic ones ebia alcohol no twini nyina ba one ade ba ko I me say community no mpa moringa for example tea. Moringa tea some moringa leaf no na omo yam de moringa powder no. Yeah. There are over 200 active compounds in the moringa leaf. 200 active compounds.
Wow.
Yeah. It will be better no more say my blood pressure call from.
Okay.
Maybe there is something in there a help with blood pressure. Now 199 I can.
What is it doing to
you? What is that doing to you?
Okay.
And he said if you can find a company that has been able to find out what exactly is in the moringa plant that cures blood pressure. Now me isolate just that compounder. It's okay for you to take, but to take that raw leaf powder, now they are tea no one nominating in any day. And yema aka odigu ni pediem no, you have no idea. And some of these ones are nephrotoxic, which means it can cause kidney failure.
Is that why Ghana kidney, like people have a lot of kidney disease? Dialysis is a big issue in Ghana now. Can we attribute it to that?
Absolutely, yeah. I strongly believe say. Some of the herbal medicines, those bitters, and this animal is causing a lot of problems, especially young people and they're on dialysis. It makes no sense to be on dialysis unless say you had a genetic disease or something. It makes no sense that kidney be shut down all of a sudden. Yes, diabetes, any herbal medicine because we are one or prescription medication so on. Now side diabetes and any money a day. Efra bebre wa drug interactions in share. And there are compounds in the be roots in this animal mu it be a carcinogenic, it can cause cancer. It be a nephrotoxic, it be kidney failure, it be a hepatotoxic, it destroy liver. The one thing is say be a drubi abenu mako ni pedium be a foul liver mu and sana ko ni pedium liver act as like police. Make sure say be a ewura or bloodstream no okay inti liver detoxify and detoxify nema ewo ni pedium be nyina inti amfo bebre omo nom sa nema na omo fa how and they are more both the kidney shut it down and the liver I say. Yeah.
Because I think that last week or so 2 weeks ago, news about that you're still going for Kolebu, increasing the price of dialysis.
Dialysis, yes.
Was a huge deal. Everybody is crying about it. Because now a lot of people are on dialysis. And then now, but there's commercial out there. We'll be here, so acquire surgery, kidney transplant, liver transplant. Oh, yejiska momboa. But in the NTBN, we didn't hear a lot of that among Ghanaians. It wasn't common. Say Ghana need here kidney transplant or liver transplant. But all of a sudden, within a short period of time, we are getting a lot of those issues coming up. And some doctor can say, yeah, very careful. Natural, organic, herbal, no, bitters, moringa leaves. It's good, it's helping you, but you don't know what else it is interacting with your body. Emia doctor ama odrobia onom. Okwa moringa leaf so aka ho. That interaction there question. The doctor doesn't know so no moringa leaf. Enti no ma outside do no the ma.
Yeah.
So what fan the chino aka nom sa moringa leaf no. Emia it doesn't work. Na e cause issues. Think say you that question wa ha. The first doctor everything aboa. I say it seems to me most medications do not cure illnesses, but rather slow the infection. Are there reasons why diseases like cancer, AIDS, sickle cell, etc., don't have cures up to now?
Okay, so I think nipa combine or say it rather slows. So infection is something different, and like a disease like cancer is different.
So, maybe it manages the symptoms; it doesn't cure it.
Yeah, if it is an infection, there an antibiotic will actually cure the infection.
Okay.
Yeah, because the infection is caused by a bacteria.
Okay.
If you give the person an antibiotic, it kills the bacteria, and then the infection will go away. But if the person is talking about diseases there, then that is like a totally different. So I think I will address that disease part and say. It seems to me most medications do not cure illnesses. Are there any reasons why diseases like cancer, AIDS, sickle cell, etc. don't have cures up until now? Okay, so one thing we need to understand is ubiaria. What is the cause of the sickness? Is it a genetic issue? Because mean to me, mau a draw emanating cure genetic issue. For example, you're woe and you have a defective heart. Mean to me, mau pill, emanating FNCB, also a boy, I see a one hole in heart. Yeah. Mean to me, mau a draw emanating coca hole no entum. And you have to undergo surgery, or the medications we are giving you, is to manage whatever defect that hole in heart is causing. But it's not going to fix the hole in the heart unless you do a surgery. And there are some diseases, the underlying cause of the disease, it's not something we can fix with a pill.
Okay.
But the effect of whatever has taken place, is having on the body, we can try and manage that, with the medication. But if it is a condition that we know, say, is caused by a virus, a bacteria, or something else, then we can target that virus, with a medication, and then we'll get rid of, the disease. To sickle cell, for example, a genetic disease. It is to manage the symptoms that is occurring as a result of the sickle cell. The only way to fix the sickle cell is to do like a bone marrow transplant, for example. But there is no drug fix it like sickle cell by itself. Okay. I think it depends on what kind of illness or disease you have and what is the underlying cause of that disease. Yeah.
Doctor, that's it. Kakra meet me because my experience kakra idea I mentioned and said Now, we said in the beginning, we can say Africa for we don't sign up for clinical trials. No. One other aspect, so research, it goes into medication. Eti, omo sika to pump into research, no, and when they are giving money for scientific research, they are focusing on diseases that affect you more. The sickle cell affected black people more, affected Indians more. And when you sickle cell, we are kitty. It is the sickle cell move very, very little. It is for a very long time now. Not a lot of money has gone into researching about it to find out the cure. And saying, I think so over a period of maybe 10, 12 years or more, do my attention call sickle cell so kakra more research. Now they know say we can do a bone marrow transplant. Now there's another thing coming up, gene editing.
Right.
It is sometimes I hard so we need sika obre no. Because almost sika they are putting their money into diseases that affect their people. And we have a lot of options for them. But diseases that affect us, because it can be brain come. You fancy malaria cry. Then you Bill Gates and then you see and then you vaccine for malaria and that's how no will be struggling because not a lot of black people are putting money into scientific research for those diseases. Signing up for clinical trials and putting money into diseases that affect young, specifically black people.
I want to say something real quick. Even with the sickle cell, right? It's mostly prevalent around, like you said, in Africa and places around the equator, right? People that have, they say it's an evolutionary process which has some benefits to it. People that have sickle cell or they are carriers of sickle cell, they can't get malaria. In Tusha, it's mostly in Africa because that's where malaria is. And it's actually protective for
malaria.
Yeah, obi all sickle cell obi antiminya malaria because malaria parasite it can thrive because sickle cell the blood cell usually around but sickle cell I say sickle that's why they call it sickle. Malaria parasite intimi and thrive or that shaped way to be all sickle cell obi antiminya malaria. Yeah, so it's an evolutionary process that happened over time to kind of preserve life. But then the sad thing is if you end up with two of those sickle cell genes then it becomes a disease. And another thing I was saying is there is something we call orphan drugs. So orphan drugs are drugs that treat diseases that are not one thing we need to understand is what motivates these companies to make medications, the profit they will make out of it. And so we are say the whole world there is about 8 billion of us. Nasa we are now affecting 100 pa. Okoye drone na say or spend 2.2 billion. Nipa 100 per no better than wateneka. And those kind of diseases, your friend orphan diseases, and the drugs to treat those conditions are called orphan drugs. So the government has special programs that they incentivize these companies to come up with cures for some of these. And yes, they will not do it on their own because it's not profitable for them. So the government steps in, provides the money for the research and the funding for them to, come up with new cures for some of these diseases. Until affecting a lot of times it's hard to cure because the pharmaceutical companies they are not putting their money in that kind of disease. Diabetes affecting millions of people. This he has a huge market share to get the profit. So that's another thing I would say.
Any other question about that's I hope sir answer the buy sir. And you be and I use pill to solve. Some of them, their underlying issues are a pill cannot solve it. And advice back what I said about say, Africa we have to be open to what is happening in the scientific world, especially for diseases that prevalently affect us. Affecting Africa no. Since you can't come more, we will not get the research that will put out the drug. It's like a Bill Gates and Fanny Sika and malaria mua and Jimmy Carter and Fanny Sika and then a Huadane and then a Nimunyam and Shamaka and the Guinea worm infestation in Africa, it will still be there. But on the Sika and then a Huadane Eshamunti and the Guinea worm infestation in Africa being it normally people have to direct their attention and their resources to it before we can see the benefit. A big question said, is it good to take food supplements?
So food supplement, so a supplement, until if you are not somebody that is udidi so unya good balanced diet. There's no need for the food supplement because the food supplement is to supplement what you are eating. To feel say what did any good they be one diet and PC the whole week, fufu the whole week there, then it means you are missing out. And to also take food supplement. Okay, but what I would say you have to be careful what kind of supplement you are taking. Make sure say it's coming from a good place that has been tested and verified. You are not just buying it from the internet or from any place. You have to be very careful what you are taking.
Or better still, just get the dianino.
Yeah.
Once in a while, eat an orange.
Yeah.
Eat an apple. Eat a banana.
Fruits and vegetables.
Yeah. It will make up for all of those defects, because what I learned today, those fat-soluble vitamins, KEAD, those vitamins stored up in your body can have adverse effects. So instead of taking vitamin K supplements, why don't I eat a carrot once in a while just to make up for those things? And your bad advice here say, instead of relying on the supplements, let's balance our diet. Ghana for you doing it naturally. It's kind of it's balanced. If you balance it, you eat your fruits and your vegetables, so you'll be okay instead of spending money on the supplements. The question back about said, are there reasons why most medications only slow down illnesses or disease rather than completely cure it? Are there not enough research?
I think so we just addressed it, but I will re-echo it again. Again, it depends on the disease. Ijina yare kroso. Yare bi ono ma untimi fedro enkyo. Okay, for example, there are two types of diabetes. There is type 1 diabetes and there is type 2 diabetes. The difference then is o pancreas and they produce insulin. And the insulin and they regulate your blood sugar. Obi a type 1 diabetic no. Ye wono no. One, either so only pancreas. Anase ne pancreas enye adwuma enti onye insulin bia. Say nipa we mintimi man duro e ma ne grow pancreas foforo. Mintimi man duro e ma ne pancreas all of a sudden enye insulin. The pancreas no is short. Enti the only way I bet treat nipa way is to put the person on insulin and the person will be on the insulin for the rest of his life. Unless onya divine healing. Nenya me creating new pancreas man. These are some of the reasons why yarebi ono ma enti ufi se bia e duro ni slow and say slow it down. The bottom line is enikio. E duro na e ma ono is to manage it so you can have a normal life.
Okay.
Anyway yarebi so ono ma e curable. We can fix it with surgery, or even there are medications that can treat an infection.
Your friend said type 2 now. Can you say type 1, you need pancreas until you can produce insulin.
Right.
And type 2, can it be cured? Can we do something about it? Because for change your diet, they are off type 2.
Absolutely. So type 2 diabetes, it means one, either say pancreas, it's not producing enough insulin. It produces insulin, but it's not enough. Okay. That's one condition. Another condition is pancreas produces insulin, but our body is not responding to the insulin that pancreas producing. Okay. And it being so there a sheer like be overweight. You put a lot of stress on the body. It be also diet a highly like carbohydrate diet. High because one thing most people don't know is maybe me dey sichire because I remember me sugar kosoro. Now what type fufu chense ma. Fufu no so e ko ni peduama everything gets turned into sugar.
It breaks down sugar.
On tnaso endi sugar bo mabako but obedi fufu mo bo mabako. Now also mean dey sichire but it's the same.
Abusiafo enti ade ba kwa yesu no high carbohydrate meals it gets burned down in the body, broken down into the body as sugar. And it's so we do type 2 diabetes now, or but sometimes you begin to see some changes. Question about say, what about thalassemia traits? thalassemia. So I think it has to do with sickle cell kakra.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, I think there was another question. Thalassemia trait.
so I don't know, like, say Nipano is a contribution, or they are trying to figure out what is that disease, or if they can clarify what they are trying to actually ask her.
Ask her. But what other question by about thalassemia? No. So over to me, I clarify a question kakra, so that we can be able to dive into it. To bet me, I come back again. Right here, no. What question or contribution be also over to me the aba. Yemre na yaso. Enti na part 1 no will be wrapping up soon. Na nya me adoma ya the part 2 no ato so. Ano pa me announcement make bibi kakra am person bi e no na yetimi de edeba end. Sir, akoto edro ye say topa e Ghana sa na friend capsules ye friend topa e na we biem no de gu ne nkwan mu. Na anopa na sofo kra ka say bi mu di shefufuo mu. On topa e shefufuo mu na wafa. It's a dog. You hear about a draw and how it gets into the body from the mouth, into the esophagus, stomach, small intestines, into the liver, and back to wherever it needs to go. No? How do we address some of these things? Because they're very, very prevalent among Ghana for, especially Ubisa. Near man said, "Driven and person or Benum there, you know, near the first fufu and Kwaimu." What do we do about it?
Yo, so there are so many reasons I'm de endure good topayim. Endure be a very corrosive. For example, corrosive meaning say man kata
it burns.
Amanan could do baby or could dry. It burns. Yeah, it be one more. It can actually like disrupt like esophagus no. Say a drone kasanka can esophagus no. I bet me. I'm an hour. Until they have to put it in the capsule to make sure, say, whilst it's going through esophagus, it doesn't get stuck or it doesn't get exposed to it, and it can actually get into your stomach. So that can be one reason why omode capsule no akata. I think that
be able to go nkwa ma
ekebeti mama ubini ma yekuro. Yeah. We talked about Prilosec initially. Prilosec capsules, they put that. It's like little pebbles. The capsule prevents the medication from being activated in your stomach. Because then I will say, Bruno, it me efa stomach intact. Ewa bra enye neko small intestines na it me absorb and sana yejuma. But say unye yi capsule ni free home. Na say o the good apple sauce and juice na onoma edro no enye juma. Because the stomach acid the be say a drone and sana etima ko dru baby or say ye juma.
Okay. Enti amanfo bebre enum edro a ya mo capsules no mo the good so no you but so anoma or say enye juma doctor dro adema enye juma but don't can't doctor and say
yeah
he's taking it the wrong way. You say no capsule no but to pa e ubie na o de gu nkwan mu. The one nom sa enye juma and I don't know me no akonya sore throat because I roll minimum. Until we have to be very, very careful. You can't draw. You can't fan sa. So won't me fan sa catch up on find it different way or make the amount. And tell me to pay no samana unto me minute and could be a good crying. Catch your doctor and so as some into me a minute or find it different way or make me administer a drone amount. Okay, it's the 4 and no and common year the end of I hope so I ain't sure will be will be the question by I think so or the explanation about. I say, can someone with thalassemia get malaria? Thalassemia trait, your red blood cells are smaller than those in people who don't have the trait. It means you have lower levels of hemoglobin, which could result in mild anemia. Possible symptoms include pale skin and fatigue. Okay.
So what I know about thalassemia, they say, red blood cell count is low than like the normal person.
Okay.
But as to whether the actual shape of the blood cell is distorted, that I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm not confident, but I don't think it's distorted.
Okay.
It's just it makes your blood levels lower than the normal person.
Okay.
Yeah. If it's distorted, then I'm not sure say if that gives you any like immunity against malaria or not.
Okay.
But what I know is that thalassemia, you usually have lower like red blood cell count. But as to whether the actual shape of the blood cell or not is like, you know, distorted in any way, that one I'm not too sure.
And so that would be one of those diseases that affects a small number of people.
Yeah.
And maybe a lot of research hasn't gone into it, a lot of money has not gone into it because nipa kakra bi na affect you more. And we who are prone to have those diseases, so we can pump money into research for them to study more about these diseases. For last question, okay. You're trying last question. Now you're the emre aba, you're the incommodie no aba we and then I insure be brave, see no ma be brave. Na your boy Radem Paul say nyame aduma next week so you bet so na yakɔ details kakra. Yesre mo ara, mo questions na mo comments na mra na yentimi ending komo na nyina yensua de emfrim. And then see no ma be brave. Na the me dey kopa especially those supplements, vitamins, minerals, and normal ayefano, because those are over the counter. I'm not fully brain but they don't know the effect it is having on them. Those fat soluble vitamins, A, E, K, and D vitamins are no. Unumni be bria a body but a broswa a house so. Moringa tea leaves are man for so and no. We have to be very careful. So I know moringa tea leaves, and you also have other medication. You have to be careful. There might be some interaction going on you are not aware of. And the idea in your and remember say, you're careful. Dear, call you nipa diemu. Diania ye di any a dry nom. Okoto supplement making sure say USP seal bon and I say GMP certified. No one who said a bit me aboa and cause harm and mouth. You're trying last question no. My doctor, am I in closing thoughts? They are trying last question. No?
Yeah, and the mechanism I was a man for a year, especially in real mototo over the counter and no more other online. We have to be very, very careful. Say, maybe I would a drone free. No? One is a very reputable source, and you are verifying to make sure say it has been certified by either USP and as a GMP.
Okay.
And then if you have any questions, never hesitate to always ask your pharmacist for advice. Okay. They have a wealth of knowledge and they are always usually very accessible. A lot of times, so-called doctor office now in your PSA pet, it's very hard to get a hold of anybody. But the pharmacists are always available. You can walk to them. If you have any questions, you know, just ask them.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah, last questions about Dr. Abuayo. Is it good to drink juices made from vegetables and fruits made at home? And 2, if I have diabetes and high blood pressure and the doctor prescribes 2 different medications for me, can I take them together or should I take them separately? Doc.
Oh, okay, so I think the first question will be say we juice and vegetable we bit my animal. I think there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Bit my and you'll be fine. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that one is totally fine. The second question is about
as far as some chemicals,
right? Yeah. But juice, no, the moringa kakra, no, the way fra. Yeah, but if it's just pure fruits and vegetables, no blend there, it's totally fine and it's very healthy. Wait, man. The next question is about taking 2 medications together. I can't really make any comment on that, not knowing what kind of medication it is. But a lot of times you can take them together. Okay. Maybe lisinopril is for blood pressure, metformin is for diabetes. But you might take them together without any issue. But there might be some medications where there is an interaction. But a lot of times pharmacists not fully don't know, they will catch it. And there is anything you need to know, they will make you aware. But other than that, you know, there's nothing stopping you from taking those 2 medications. As long as the pharmacist and some church will say, okay, you know, wait, my take you tuning in at the same time.
Someone can say, if the same doctor is prescribing both of them, so they will be aware of it. And say, I just work with 2 different doctors. So I say, Uto be free Ghana and Uji be free Hadia, and then you might have this question. But if it's coming from the same doctor and you're getting it from the same pharmacist there, I think they will be able to advise you easily on
Yeah,
that.
so a lot of times, say the same doctor prescribing 2 medications. And one thing we need to know, and say we'll go a little bit more into that maybe next week. But doctors, out of almost 4 years, almost spend no medical school, they spend just 1 semester learning about medications.
3 months.
3 months. And no crano is a few hours here and there.
Okay.
Intino, ometima prescribe drew me normal. I drew no interactive, but ebia no munim.
Okay.
That's where the pharmacist comes in.
Okay.
There are several times on a daily basis, at least. I will make 1 phone call, at least 1 phone call about doctor or prescribing drew me, I'm the same patient, but it drew me, interacting.
Okay.
Yeah. And in a lot of times, they are trying to treat the condition, but as to how the drugs interact, and they are not knowledgeable about that stuff because that's not their field of study. And it is up to us, the pharmacists, to be able to detect that and then bring the doctor's attention to it. Say, hey, nipa we were prescribing in drum anyway, but there is an interaction here. And our advice say be a yin free drew ways in 2 ways to avoid that interaction. And now I say there is an interaction. Obey to take care drum, but I'll see a T-dose in this man.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you have this question about if you are getting it from the same pharmacist, they should be help you. Unless you are getting it from different pharmacists and they don't know. And another question. Okay, we need a last question. But your last question, that must have a question. No comments are more by my interaction or I there. But into your person next week near Twaso. And your last question, you say any side effects on cholesterol atorvastatin.
Atorvastatin, yeah.
Okay. Statins for cholesterol. Okay. Are there any side effects? Somebody who is taking a statin for their cholesterol, Obusa.
Yeah. So yeah, there are side effects. So anytime I'm over took cholesterol medications, for the first 3 months, I also monitor liver enzymes.
Okay.
Because in some people, odomoto atorvastatin, so it means more liver enzymes a cholesterol.
Okay.
Inti or the other liver enzymes cholesterol, then doctors they might take you off and try another medication. And I see via dose and then watch you for some time. So that's one of the common side effects that happens in some people. But one rare side effect, but it tends to happen in some people, what we call rhabdomyolysis, which is basically muscle pain.
Okay.
There are some people are odomotostatin, so muscle pain. It feels like say you went to the gym now for exercise. The next day, how muscles are feeling. Yeah, they kind of get that feeling when you put them on atorvastatin. Yeah.
And to whoever brought that question, what other question by if you are having any of these side effects and you are feeling any of these things, go back and talk to your doctor and your pharmacist. Now, I might change the medication, and I say, I be abo. Yada must say, Abusia for say you money atna say edin komo na nyina yesua de did say ayen shrama obebre na me aduma next week you beto aso and to call questions no comments awo no boabo ni nyina no na me aduma next week yetna se a yetimia ansa ni nyina onyankopon nhyira obebre ye de enkomo no beba awieye ye da mu nyina masese motena ase na mo ni edin komo ye da ye bushafo ase mo ma ye kwan ma ye baaye na yetimi be ye adwuma you said doc na yere ene ne ma ho so ko show mo anumre but na me adom mama na kwan ama na ba meseme saa do wura so ase so ba be chinchim fidie ne ma ye da so for frank ase so ma ye kwan say ye betna ye be hye na namu na ye di sa enkomo we na me adom next week ye beto aso enti obiya woni ye adwuma anumre na kopon hira ye be ma doc abom pa ya man na ye de adwuma die no abewe.
Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for giving us the opportunity and the privilege, Father, to speak to your children about how to maintain good health. We pray that, Father, let this topic that we've discussed here tonight have the level of impact that you want it to have in the lives of our people. We commit ourselves into your hands, Father, this week. We pray that, Lord, everybody will have a blessed week. And when we meet here next week, Father, to continue our discussion, we'll give you all the glory and praise. In Jesus' mighty name we've prayed. Amen.
Amen. Amen.